Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This is a track which very, very soon will find itself once again back in Formula One fame. But before we get even to that point, there is a much bigger fame for the drivers of Australia to find themselves in. Yes, you are absolutely right. They are looking for one of the biggest Australian series to come out and give them one of three magical places. That series, All-Star Shootout. This, the race-off. This is 20 minutes of qualifying, followed by a 40-minute race to decide three positions. The top two will find themselves way through. One more will be chosen at a different point in time. And from here on in, this is going to be a very interesting challenge for everyone to try and get correct here on Forever Sim Racing. It's Jake Sperry joined by Josh Beng in the commentary booth. And Josh, this is going to be a very important race for these drivers because they don't have this ticket to the magical invitation just yet. They have to earn their right, not through performances throughout the year, but through this one race.
Mate, this is going to be absolutely wicked. G'day, everyone. Look, these are such awesome cars. It's a fantastic little circuit. I'm so happy for it to be back on the F1 calendar. Look, it's going to be really exciting. I can't wait to see what happens.
No, we can't wait either, and this is going to be really, really telling when we look at where the qualifying times are coming in. We're not able to show you exactly what those times are, but at the moment it's Chris Ahoon in the sixth who has control of the field at the moment on a 1:31.8. It's Kurt Stenberg in second, and Glenn Postlethwaite is in third for the moment. Talk about how close this is. This is a field currently that is split up by just 1 second through the top 10 vehicles at the moment look like they're going to be set to go into qualifying for this one. So back out onto track comes Kurt Stenberg and Guy Leach in fifth position in 46 machine. And Josh, we are looking at this track. It's a very flowing track. It's a natural track which rises and falls through the dunes and is very much going to be one of those tracks where a mistake could so very easily happen in these radical SR8, which so easily can be very twitchy when it comes to high speed.
Absolutely. Look, these cars are relying so heavily on downforce. They're relying very much on the tyre throughout this circuit. One little mistake is going to hurt big time. As you start to look around the circuit, you'll see that there's a lot of areas on the track that don't seem to have much runoff, where you would expect them to have a little bit more. So you could almost treat it somewhat like a street circuit in some senses, where it's quite dangerous. So look, it's going to be really interesting to see how these guys push, how aggressive they are into some corners. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah, it's going to be really, really awesome indeed. Scott Newton has just put in his first time in the number one machine, up to second position on the 1:31.9, so trying to push the envelope out, but unable to do so. He will now pull back into pit road and try and get another time out on the board. The one driver who hasn't set a time yet is Trent Gosley in the number 4, but that at the moment the wait as we are halfway through qualifying. Kurt Stenberg then looks to come across the line in the 47 and does so and going to set a lap time. So this is how a lap of the track looks. You head into this first corner, Tarzan, which is banked all the way to the inside. Make sure you don't clip that curb on the inside. Before you get onto the outside, you head yourself through 2 and then you get yourself to the Hugenholt here at turn number 3 on the brakes. Another cambered corner. This track is all about these cambered corners, very similar to a NASCAR circuit in some respects. Now up through the dunes, through 4 and then through 5, before you head yourself through this nice little right-hand kink of 6 up over the hill. Shivlak here of turn 7, which often just takes forever and a day to get through. You wait to put the power down, and now Josh, second half of the lap as they start heading themselves towards Marlborough and Vodafone.
Mate, they're coming through the left-hander at the moment. Oh, sorry, I'm on the wrong driver.
Oh, wow.
Oh, sorry, my bad. No, keep going. I'm going to catch back up.
Well, you're going to catch back up through the left-hander, the big long left-hander that leads onto this secondary straight, which is one of the key overtaking opportunities here. They head themselves to the Audi S, this right 90 degrees and then a left 180 is always going to be with one of the big break points. You look to put the power down and get back out and get racing again. 2 right-handers remain as you head yourself through turn number 12, and then finally this 13th corner, which leads onto that long front stretch, which again becomes a place for overtaking opportunity. It seems like a clean lap so far from Kurt Stenberg, maybe a little aggressive in certain areas, has a lot of benefits. Does a 32.2, so does not improve his time from the 1:32.1 that he's already set, so stays in third position, but these drivers are adapting to a car that they don't normally drive here, Josh. They're not normally Radicals drivers. A lot of drivers come in, say, from the HPD, which is the LM2 vehicle that we have on the iRacing service. Others coming in from the likes of Formula One. So a lot of drivers coming in from the likes of the Australian touring car scene. So I think a lot of drivers have that big opportunity to showcase, well, this is what I am capable of doing, and this is a car that levels the playing.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, these cars are very twitchy there. As you can see, as these guys push, you'll see them coming out of the corner, especially on the exit. You'll see the back end of the car twitching. They're a very peculiar car. Nothing like, well, really nothing like anything else that you see. When you compare it to an open wheeler, these don't have as much downforce, but they've got more downforce than a tin top. So they're a really weird car to drive. But look, they're so wicked. They're heaps of fun. They're heaps loud, heaps fast. Look, I think they're not a bad car for this circuit. I think it works quite well. The dynamic of the car with the somewhat low grip, I guess you could say, for this circuit, and the tight turns here with the long flowing sections, mate, it's going to be wicked.
It's going to be absolutely fantastic to see as currently at the moment, Glenn Postlethwaite finds himself in the 4th position at the moment, making his way through the big left-hander, trying to get on the power in the Synergy Sim Racing car and trying to showcase just what he is capable of. He's seen his teammates, for example, make it through to a certain draft series when it comes to what has happened in the Australian touring car scene. We'll see how that one plays into a factor with that big push that they have been having. But through the final couple of corners, needs to find a 10th and a half here to gain a position, and the longer that this goes on, the tougher that finding time is going to be. The track's 42 degrees at the moment on track, so it's a hot track and it's only going to get hotter, and goes on to set a flying lap in the next couple of moments. So that was an out lap there. Scott Newton also looking for times as well and trying to find just that magical 10th, which seemingly won't happen as he goes on to start his own flying lap.
Look, Scott Newton, he nearly got taken out by another driver there, Chris Horn, coming into turn 1. So I hope that hasn't impeded his lap. That was he was very aggressive going into turn 1.
Well, I think there was a lot of room given there on that inside. Chris Aoun coming out of pit road there, so very much able to stay to that inside line. Didn't really affect much. Maybe driver's eyesight would be the only see. Let's move forward to the number 2 car, or move back, so to speak, because we've got Darren McKenzie, who's just quietly going about things, looking to gear up for a flying lap. Currently bottom of drivers who've set a time so far, in 9th position on a 1:33.2, which isn't bad actually by standards here at Zandvoort. Only 1.4 seconds off the quickest time. And you're talking about drivers like Aoun and Newton and Stenberg, who can practically turn up in anything really, and put themselves very close to the top. So Darren McKenzie right now looking to try and put a flying lap together, and on to start that flying lap as he heads to Tarzan.
Scott Newton coming around the final turns now. He's very aggressive, very taily coming out of turn 11. Coming through turn 2 using all the road. And coming up to the final turn now. Oh, big slide. Oh, he's
in the fence. He's in the fence. He just caught the grass on the inside, which completely affected the run and the lap. So heading through that final corner, trying to get greedy on that curb, and it's literally just 2 tyres on the grass, and there's no runoff area on that final corner, and he has to abandon ship and go again. That's not good. There's only 4 minutes left. It's a minute and a half to get around the track. Maybe he's got 1 lap left in him, maybe 2. So this is really getting down to the crunch time, and drivers are starting to push the limit of the track, and maybe a little bit more of that as well. Warren Pickering has moved up into 4th position with his last lap, which is a 1:32.271, and that is perfect for Warren. He needs to make that push and showcase just what he is going to be capable of. And I have to say, I love that livery. It looks like an artist has just chucked every single paint can in the world over the top of that vehicle, and it looks stunning.
It does look stunning, doesn't it?
Absolutely, and we can be artists about this all we like, as Warren Pickering will look to set a flying lap next time by. So this is the crunch. These are drivers who are looking to set times. Someone else looking to set a time will be the 3 of Sean Thompson, who is yet to go out and set a time. So talk about leaving it late in the day. Here is someone who will leave it late in the day, as Glenn Postlethwaite has found the fence, heading through the penultimate corner, lost the car on the exit, gets on that curb, trying to correct the oversteer there, Josh, and it's so difficult to do because the car gripped up and almost very much veered into that Armco, and that's going to leave him maybe just 2.5 minutes to get back around. This will be a one-lap shootout left now for Glenn Postlethwaite.
Tell you what, that's putting the pressure on, absolutely. One lap shootout, especially after a big session, and trying to set a faster time, that's going to be really difficult for him. The pressure's on. I hope he's not hammering himself in that helmet there, because that wouldn't be too good. That's not going to help that qualifying lap, though. All the best for this lap, as Scott Newton has found the wall once again.
Oh, not again for Scott, and that will almost end that one entirely. Just ran wide through turn 3 out on track and decides to abandon chip, and I think decided I'm just going to leave this one right to the very last second. Put some times in. Also keep an eye on Jeffrey Price, who in the 97 machine is up to 6th position at the moment. He's in his own scrap with Guy Leach and Mitchell McLeod in the Torque Inc. machine. McLeod has not put in a time representative as of yet, as we are just a minute and a half away from qualifying ending. This is an open qualifying session here, Josh, so that's going to mean that once the checkered flag falls, it means that there is going to be time to finish the lap that you have started where you wouldn't in close qualifying conditions. Someone who is trying to push the needle, Chris Aoun at the top. He's done a 31.7, he's found an extra 10.
Tell you what, that is very impressive considering that time that he's already set. I'm not too sure where he's finding this extra time, but that is a very impressive time there. As he comes sliding out of that final turn, he's really pushing that car right to the limit.
He is, and across the line he will look, and he will now go on to set a flying lap, the final flying lap that he has available. Scott Newton will not go any quicker. He won't be threatened that way. Kurt Stenberg's just improved his time. He's gone up to third, well, he stays in third, but he's done a 1:32.062, so has found more time and gives himself a buffer between himself, Pickering, and Postlethwaite as Guy Leach crosses the line and goes 6th and has another lap to try and find it. 30 seconds remain now on the clock. Warren Pickering comes across the line and now will look to start his flying lap. Sean Thompson will follow in suit. Did not set a representative lap time. He had an off track somewhere over the course of that last lap. So now the question comes, will anyone get over the line next? Kurt Stenberg will be on his final lap now. Will not make it over the line as the flag will expire and time expires in this qualifying session in the race off here at Circuit Park Zandvoort here in the Netherlands. Penultimate corner comes for Stenberg. Trans-Tasman racing driver getting all over the curb and looking to make that push for the final corner. Checker flag comes out then on the left-hand side, and here's the push for Stenberg, looking to try and find something in terms of lap time. 32.0 his best, 32.5, that's not good enough for Stenberg. Next up on track will be Jeffrey Price around the final corner. I think this is going to be an abandoned lap down onto pit road. It is no better than 7th position. Postlethwaite spins it through the final corner, will not do any better than 5th place. So we go back to Guy Leach in the number 46, and he gets on the curb out to the Audi S, so he won't go any quicker. Everyone pushing a bit too hard. Warren Pickering needs half a second to get pole position and finds him 4th. And oh, he's done exactly the same thing. Same place, same tyres. Unbelievable stuff. Newton won't go any quicker. Everyone's over the line. This is how things will stack.
Wow. What a full-on ending.
What a full-on ending indeed. And on the left-hand side of your screen, you will see just how everyone will line up for this race-off. It'll be Chris Aoun on pole position with Scott Newton from 2nd, who is trying to practice starts with Kurt Stenberg in 3rd and Warren Pickering in 4th. Glenn Postlethwaite will share the 3rd row with Guy Leach, Jeffrey Price, Mitchell McLeod on row number 4. If McLeod takes start, Darren McKenzie, last of the drivers to set a flying lap time. Drivers that didn't set times included Wayne Loesch, Trent Gosley, and Sean Thompson, as everyone looks to try and make sure that this is going to work out in their favour. It's 40 minutes worth of racing coming up here, Josh. So there's going to have to be an element of patience in some respects, but for a lot of these drivers, it's going to feel like a sprint, and they're going to feel like they want to gain positions early.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, these cars are very, I'm not sure on the best way to say it, but they're very inviting into a corner. So I feel like the drivers have to be careful on the first couple laps going in. They might feel like they've got a little bit more grip than the car ahead, when in reality, the car ahead's actually pushing the limits and there's no more. So it's going to be, I'm hoping that it's going to be a clean start, though don't be surprised if you see a couple spins, a couple cars going wide. It's going to be a very interesting start.
It is, and they are fighting for 2 transfer spots, so to speak, when it comes to the racing action that we will have on Sunday for All-Star Shootout. And on top of that, there will be one driver in the field who, based on performance, will find themselves through as the wild card into that final lot of racing. You've got some of the greats, Josh, that come along from this type of racing. You've got the likes of Jared Filsell, who's turned up. Madison Down will be racing as well. And you race against those sorts of names. And for some people, when they look at Australian sim racing, they'll look back in 10, 15, 20 years' time and say, those were the legends of sim racing in Australia.
No, absolutely. It's a massive time. It's awesome, this sort of time where sim racing is becoming such a major factor into finding drivers. So us setting the ground now and having these competitions, it's fantastic.
Absolutely is, as these drivers will look to get themselves up on the grid and will look to try and get themselves going. They've got 2 minutes to put themselves up on the front of that grid, or they start from pit road, whichever is their preference. They will have the full 2 minutes to get themselves ready, and those drivers, say, towards the back of the pack, will have a bigger push, have a bigger emphasis on trying to make positions, with Aoun and Newton on the front row looking to showcase what they've got. Kurt Stenberg starting for third, Glenn Postlethwaite there in fifth. We wait for Warren Pickering to get onto the grid. Mitchell McLeod, we are not expected to take to the start of this one. So this is going to be a tough challenge here for a lot of drivers. There'll be one empty grid stall at least, so Warren Pickering will make them wait here for the final 30 seconds or so. It's a long run towards turn number 1, and those drivers on the outside will get the advantage off the start, mainly because that's where the racing line tends to find themselves. The dirty side of the track is on that inside, and they have to be very much warned about that. If they do need to come down into pit road, it's a very narrow pit road as well. It's very much similar to Oulton Park in the way of the layout. It is a one-line suits all pit entry, which means that you won't have any of that too wide running. But 2 minutes up on the clock, engine notes rise as we get underway here at Zandvoort, and Chris Aoun doesn't get the best of starts and immediately has to cover here for Scott Newton on the inside, trying to make it work. Postlethwaite behind that, trying to push against Kurt Stenberg. Pickering starts from pit road, but it's the inside line for Scott Newton, who takes the race lead at turn 1.
Wow, everyone looks like they've had a pretty clean start. Everyone looks pretty stable at the moment, but it is going to liven up here.
Steady! Bang! Into the wall goes Kurt Stenberg. He's pretty much done from that one. Just an immediate case of the oversteer. Ran a little wide, tried to hook it back in and couldn't manage to get it. Stenberg is pretty much driving wounded and is effectively out. There's no fast repairs.
Wow, what a shame. Just something so simple. Ooh, there was a big slide there from Chris Aoun. There. Whew, just holding on.
Very much able to hold on, so now Postlethwaite just behind in third can start thinking about trying to get on that aggressive pedal. 2 different lines though from the leading 2 who currently hold the transfer spots, Newton and Aoun, who head themselves now through the big left-hander of turn number 9, making their way to the Audi S coming up, and this is where the draft becomes a key factor. And do you look to the inside? Newton immediately goes defensively against Chris Aoun on the outside track, who cannot get that move sorted just yet, but patience is a virtue here as they look to finish the first lap. Guy Leach there in 4th, Jeffrey Price in 5th, Darren McKenzie, Sean Thompson are 6th and 7th at the moment out on track, so we'll see where they go. Warren Pickering started from pit road, he's down in 8th place and a full 10 seconds back, but the opening lap will be completed and it'll be Scott Newton who will be in control at the moment, but Aoun is tucked up underneath looking for a chance.
He's having a look here. Is he looking for a dive? No, he doesn't. He doesn't there. So very close to making a dive, though thought better of it. Thought that he might have been on the verge there, though. He's definitely looking feisty, Chris.
Certainly is. He was maybe looking to try and just show his nose in the mirror there and say, well, I'm there, and he gets a great run out of turn number 3, but again, it's Scott Newton who's able to just pull away in the Apex Racing car and able to make that push up the hill. But again, that drop is so vital at the moment in these Radical SR8s. They make their way into Chevlac here. Turn 7 out, turn 6 out on track. Glenn Postlethwaite staying there. Guy Leach in 4th position on an island on his own at the moment. Any chance of looks into the next right-hander? No, there is not. So that section not working. Thompson's sitting behind Darren McKenzie here looking for a chance, but runs wide in the background and spins it, loops it in the background, and effectively has to do an 1,000,000-point turn to get that one back. Just about manages to be able to, but now falls to the back of the pack.
To Darren McKenzie and Sean Thompson have both spun very close to each other.
Yeah, now's the next corner for Darren McKenzie, who just headed through the left-hander there of Renault and just completely got it wrong, just looped it on the entry, and it's that mid-speed grip. You have to generate downforce in these vehicles, and drivers who aren't able to generate that are very much going to lose all their grip and spin around. Top 3 struggling goes Glenn Postlethwaite. He's over the grass as he tries to stay in contact with the leading 2 and get a transfer spot. Here's Chris Owen looking to the inside again. He lifts out of it early. But look at that, Newton runs wide.
Look, Scott did have a little bit of a brake lock up, though he managed to hold that all right. He still holds the position at the moment, but I wouldn't factor out any of these drivers here. Any one of these drivers could look to win this. This is very interesting. Oh, as he has a look up the inside/outside at this stage.
Oh, he's trying here as Chris Owen, and room has to be left here by Scott Newton. You don't want to be on the outside into Chevlac. Got to be committed there and unable take advantage and make that move, and tried every which way to make that one happen, but ultimately it didn't work. On the brakes they go again into this fantastic section, and ultimately nothing doing for the moment. So Owen definitely seems like he's the quicker driver, but Newton seemingly has the number when it comes to defensive driving at the moment. Sean Thompson is officially classified as out of this race. You've got Guy Leach, though, who's sitting very nicely there in 4th position, just comfortably waiting here, seeing what's going to happen between these front 3, because the way they've been driving has been very aggressive. If something were to happen to any one of those 3, that's a podium spot for Guy Leach, and he'll be very happy about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, he is being very patient at the moment, just hanging behind the back of the pack there, not pushing himself right to the limit, though it looks like he is looking like he's ready to pounce at any moment, as looks like Glenn has dropped off just a tad, sort of maybe coming into the leeches of Guy. So let's just see what happens here.
Definitely can see that. It was a 31-1, and Newton runs wide again at the front. Owen with the inside coming out to Tarzan as they head towards the Hugen holes, and again has to back out of it through turn 2. It's very much a one-line sweepy corner, and you have to brave on that inside to make that move. And again, Chris Owen doing only what he needs to at the moment. Remember, he doesn't have to win this race to make it to All-Star Shootout. 2nd is good enough, but you do want that bragging rights of saying, well, I want a race. These 2 are fighting each other very, very hard. Warren Pickering, though, in the background, made a way through on Darren McKenzie, so Pickering is now up into 6th place, but is 13 seconds off the race lead, which is not going to be helpful in terms of a transfer spot, hoping just to pick up that wild card position given to any certain driver in this field based on performance.
Just moving back up to the front, it looks like I'm not too sure about Scott, whether he's just taking a wider line or he's actually making mistakes. He seems to be blocking up that inside front a fair bit, so I'm not too sure whether he's feeling the pressure from Chris or it's just a standard line. It's hopefully, I'm not too sure what's going on. What do you think?
I think it's pressure here, because Scott Newton is one of those drivers who can definitely turn up and make sure that anything happens on any given day. He has done for at least the 4 years that I've seen him race in these iRacing circles. So now Chris Owen has been given maybe a little bit of the chance to drop back a little bit. That gap is almost half a second now as they get on the brakes into turn number 1, and you can see very much a tight line there from Scott Newton. So it was mistakes on the last 2 laps trying to find a braking point. A lot of these drivers won't have raced this car against each other, so they are feeling out their zones and trying to work out where is it that they need to start attacking it. Maybe, Josh, it has to be said that some of these drivers need to find a middle ground here as we're heading up towards 1/4 race distance score complete in the next 2 laps.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, they might be, like I said before, these cars are very twitchy. They're very hard to handle under high speeds. They do make downforce, and they do have high loads of grip, but they're very unpredictable. Little I guess you could say they're like the convertible open wheel. Oh, there was a lock up there, so looks like Chris has made a little bit of ground back on Scott. Though, like I was saying before, they're an unpredictable car, so it might be best for them just to take a tenth off, work at 99% rather than 100%, just to get the maximum speed out of the car. Because nothing like being patient as a racing car driver. That's where the best racing car. Oh, sorry.
There's the chance, and it came through the Audi S around the outside of turn 12. Doesn't often happen and won't happen for Chris Owen, but he's all over. Scott Newton will have complete control of the draft. They make the way to the first. Darren McKenzie officially out of this race, but Scott Newton now under pressure. Chris Owen in the 6, trying to find a way through. Defended down to the inside. Owen thought about the outside. There wasn't a lane to go down, so very much sits and waits. Another lock up there. It's going to compromise the run through the mid part of the corner. Newton is really under pressure here, and Chris Aoun is doing exactly what he's done in endurance circles too much. Round he goes, and both of them almost coming together there. Aoun escapes, and there's a bit of content on Postway, and Guy Leach has nowhere to go. He runs into Scott Newton. Disaster!
Wow, what a change that all could be. So it looks like Scott was feeling the pressure. He's had a big spin, and I'm not too sure who else got caught up in that. Was Guy Leach. He's got a little bit of damage there. I tell you what, that's a shame. That was an awesome battle that we're watching, but that is the pinnacle of pressure. So it looks like Chris he didn't come out unscathed, but he was able to put the pressure on, and it has worked in his favour.
Has worked in his favour, and it's done a brilliant job. So Chris Aoun in control. Glenn Postlethwaite moves to the transfer spot in second position. Guy Leach now on the outside looking in, but the question is, how much damage does 46 have at the moment? It looks quite substantial on that front left. The wheel is exposed. That'll be hurting fuel consumption. That'll be hurting the downforce. So this is advantage Jeffrey Price here to move up into third, potentially 33.3 last time from Price. Oh, it took lost 4/10, but now will gain so much more with Guy Leach now having to deal with damage. And we don't know how terminal that damage is at the moment. Scott Newton is all the way back in 5th position, but has lost so much time over the course of this lap after that incident, heading through 2 in towards turn 3. Leach will stay out, but now Jeffrey Price will be the man chasing.
Tell you what, the first 3 drivers of the field have some pretty substantial damage. Glenn looks like he's got some rear wing damage and rear diffuser damage. So it looks like he's being affected. You can just see the car just tailing. I'm not too sure whether that's his driving style, but it looks like the car's not holding up as well as it should be. You've got Chris out the front, who has gone wide these last couple of turns, so he's obviously feeling the lack of downforce. You've got Guy Leach, who's got some pretty hefty damage as well out on the front. So look, I wouldn't put, or Jeffrey Price, Warren Pickering. Look, they depends on how fast they're going to be able to go this last few laps, but well, the rest of the race, I should say. But they might be able to catch up here. It might be an interesting end to this. They might be able to shorten up the gap quite a bit.
Certainly can. Scott Newton's on pit road, and I think he is day and done, and that won't be too helpful for him. It's been an exciting start to a race where drivers have struggled in the hotter conditions out on track. So now the question becomes, who can survive here at Zandvoort for the full 40 minutes? Because at the moment, we're not sure everyone can. Chris Aoun in control of the field, but Glenn Postlethwaite that last time by took a good 0.4 of a second out. Guy Leach there in third, lost 2 seconds, but of course this is all due to the incident that happened a little bit earlier on. This will be where representative lap times come in. We're not able to showcase that to you as such in terms of those times, but Glenn Postlethwaite at 33.7, but Chris Aoun at 32.6. Really not running into any issue at all. Pulled a second out that last lap and trying to just break away and make sure he's got a gap if anything happens.
Absolutely, he's trying to reassure himself here. That's a very impressive race time. So we've got look, Jeffrey Price there. He's actually lost a couple tenths to Guy Leach. So it looks like Guy's not all that affected by the damage here, which is good to see, which is awesome to see for the drivers, because they weren't able to avoid that situation. So no, good to see there.
Well, the issue is for Guy Leach is actually he's a lot slower than what he was running. He fastest lap today, 32.766 at the moment. That was a 33.6, so he's 9 tenths off of where he needs to be. You get that in comparison to Jeffrey Price. His fastest lap is a 33.3. So in terms of pace, I think this has been the great equalizer here, Josh. So this is going to come down to, can Guy Leach deal with the damage? Because he feels that he's a quicker driver than Jeffrey Price, but he won't have that understanding of saying, well, I can hold this off, because Price is going to be there all the time as he rags on the accelerator out to the Audi S.
Absolutely, and with the with Guy's car being that little bit more, it's going to be that little bit less stable than Jeffrey Price's car. So that's yeah, like you said, pardon me, I'll take back what I said before. Definitely a great equaliser.
Definitely a great equaliser, and we'll see this one as they get on the brakes and they look into the first corner. No real opportunities then to make that move and to get that one going. So Jeffrey Price just sitting and waiting, hoping for a chance. Another second and a half comes out as Chris Aoun pulls away, and Glenn Postlethwaite has to deal with that rear wing, which isn't helping. Biggest benefactor in all of this is going to be Warren Pickering, who started from pit road. Now just 11.6 behind the leader, Chris Aoun, at the moment here, and running similar lap times. In fact, was actually the fastest man on track that last time by, I think, yes, just by fractions. So Warren Pickering is the quickest man on the move as Guy Leach takes that wider line through turn number 7 and into 8 again. Wide line happening, and these two are going to get caught by Pickering pretty quick.
No, absolutely. Like, if they're at least a second a lap, so you can already, it's so visual already. Warren Pickering is coming up very closely, very quickly towards that monster car. So I'd say, you could even say in the next couple laps, there's going to be a pretty decent battle.
I bet there is going to be a decent battle, and it's pretty much heating up. There's only 5 vehicles now running here in this race, such has been the value of drop-off so far in this one. But Jeffrey Price in the 97 pushing the 46 of Guy Leach through the penultimate and the final corners. But again, it's that struggle out of those sorts of corners which Price is unable to match and keep going at this stage. They cross the line, 33.7 and 33.7 respectively. But Warren Pickering, absolutely quickest man on track. Half a second quicker than Chris Aoun that last time by. He will be the man on the move. I'm not sure he'll have enough time to catch down to the end of the race at half a second a lap. But very much so at the 15-minute mark, he is the one who is starting to make that pressure tell. But Price looking at just playing that safe game, just looking at which way he can make that move, how he chooses to make that move, and why he makes that move as well, because it's not the case of just send one down the inside and hope it sticks. You've got to plan, pre-plan those moves out, which you, of course, Josh, know all too well.
No, absolutely. You can't just send it straight up the inside, especially in one of these little cars. I sound like a broken record, but they're a very unstable car. You'll see all these drivers, they've all made at least a couple mistakes this race, and they're all just pushing. So if you're going to require an extra couple meters out of the car in braking, or throughout the turn you need that extra couple of kilometers an hour or miles an hour, whichever one you prefer. Look, you've got to make sure that the car's going to stick. So you really have to plan yourself out before, especially on a track like this where it isn't all that easy to make a pass stick.
It isn't that easy at all, and Price is finding that here in the battle for the final spot on the podium as they make their way through the final couple of corners. That's something I'm noticing here. Jeffrey Price is very tight through turn 12 and then wide through 13 with understeers, so very much a pointy vehicle that Price has got at the moment. They make their way towards turn number 1 again, and actually Guy Leach ratcheting up the pace there, did a 33.2 that last time by, and really showed that the pace is there. And I think that maybe there's a couple of drivers now starting to settle into a rhythm. Guy Leach, I think, worked out the damage and done well. Mistake there from Jeffrey Price, runs wide at turn 3. And this is only going to allow Warren Pickering the chance to close back in and try and attack for 4th.
Look, that little rainbow car of Warren Pickering, he is quickly clawing up onto Jeffrey Price, and I'd say Jeffrey is starting to feel the pressure. He is dropping off Guy, which isn't all that good for from a driving standpoint, and he'd be looking straight in that mirror and see Warren coming up each lap. He's coming ever so close. Now he's pretty much on the bumper. He's looking for an outside pass at this stage. Is he going to outbrake him? No. So he holds the inside line, keeps it nice and tight, blocks him off.
For the moment, though, because Warren Pickering will have another attack into the Audi S, potentially gap just a car length between them as they hit the brakes into the right-left section. And, of course, you've got to be very, very aggressive through here. If you don't get the best run possible, you're going to be in a bit of trouble, as Jeffrey Price will find himself now. Pickering just sitting back and waiting for that chance to happen, and gets a nice amount of curb there through turn 12, so through turn 13, very much is going to be able to push, but runs wide on the exit, gets caught with that dirty air effect that happens, that turbulence really hurting Pickering through that final corner, and that is what has cost him the run into turn number 1. How big is that dirty air effect?
Oh, absolutely. Look, the turbulent air in these cars, let alone any downforce car, is quite substantial, especially running that close. There's very little downforce that the car receives compared to the car ahead. So, playing a big factor. Oh, he's... No, you go, mate.
Yeah, he's through. Very good move there from Warren Pickering there, as the mistake again, that wide line taken by Jeffrey Price, just taking the outside line. I wonder if he decided to let Warren Pickering through, knowing that he's the quicker driver in this situation. Maybe use Warren Pickering as a pick to get back to Guy Leach and to make that move. If there's anything to say against that, it's the fact that Guy Leach at the moment is now running just a couple of tenths off of Chris Aoun. He's got that 6.3 second lead at the front over Glenn Postlethwaite, but the times have very much stabled out. They're very similar at the moment, so it's a case of who does have that turn of pace, now start trying to push their way through and show exactly what they are going to be capable of. There's no instant limit, as so to speak, to worry about, but there is that potential. Just push, and there's the pushing back from Guy Leach. He gets a huge kick of oversteer, has to save the vehicle, and Pickering now will pounce.
Look, I think Guy was very aggressive those last couple of turns. He was sliding straight into the corner, which has obviously made him vulnerable to Warren Pickering. Warren Pickering having a look up the inside, he is beside him, and he looks like he's going to make that stick.
He is on that inside line. He's got that one working. Leach will try and come back up and under. He will try and pick the pocket, but he gets a little wiggle coming off of the exit there of the Tarzan corner and will be unable to now make that move heading to Kugenholz at turn 3. So Guy Leach back in 4th position. Warren Pickering moves up into the podium after starting from pit road. He's only 4.4 seconds back now of Glenn Postlethwaite and took half a second that last time by out of him. He himself is just managing that gap at the moment. We're over half distance, but now here's the next question. It's 4 seconds for Glenn Postlethwaite to hold off Warren Pickering. Pickering at the moment may be the biggest candidate for a wild card drive. Maybe Guy Leach.
Not anymore, sorry. He is just spun.
Wow. So just like that, pushing too hard. We just caught that there, heading through the left-hander of turn 7. Trying to get on the power too early, oversteer comes along, spinning the wheels up, and he's got to do that work all over again, and that's going to hurt Warren Pickering because he's now dropped a good 5-6 seconds there, Josh.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry to interrupt you there, but that was a big moment. He just came around, it looked like he just carried too much speed into that corner. You could see the whole car start to unsettle mid-corner there, and then obviously he got back on the power just that little bit too soon, and that's ruined it for him. Unfortunate, because he was running so well. But look, I wouldn't say... Well, now considering that these drivers are struggling a little bit, I'm not too sure whether Warren's going to be able to pick that back up. They look like these other cars are starting to get in a little bit of a rhythm. And with Warren, oh look, he's pulled into the pit, so he's not happy at all.
Certainly not, and he will take himself down onto that pit road, and I think he's slowing that one right down, and I think this is going to be a end of day sort of drive. So Warren Pickering's run, I think, about coming to an end. We are going down to 4 then, who are pushing. You got the battle between Leach and Price, and they are both trying to stay within some sort of range to put pressure on Glenn Postlethwaite, who's comfortably driving around on his own, doing a 33.8. He's not fussed about Chris Aoun in the number 6. He can happily let him get away. You talk about times, he's done a 35, now just running those mid to late 33s out on track, because that's what Guy Leach is doing at the moment. He's managing that gap of about 4 seconds right now. In fact, Pickering had already entered himself into the challenge, into All-Star Shootout. A couple of drivers were allowed, Josh, of course, to run just to get a bit of practice under their belt. So he's already booked his place, so he will just pull that off and say day and done. But Guy Leach at the moment in 3rd is thinking about, well, it's either me or Jeffrey now who's going to make their way through.
I don't blame him. I would be pushing just as much as he is. Look, he hasn't got anything to lose at this stage, so he might as well have a crack and go for it. And with Glenn being pretty patient, he's being very calm with the car, not asking too much of it, just somewhat dawdling around, I should say. Pulling a 1:34 there compared to, sorry,
That's
just
all right,
lost
man.
the guy. 1:33.3, so he is losing a bit of time. A second just in that lap alone. Look, I don't blame Guy Leach for having a crack here. He might actually be able to stand on the podium.
Yeah,
Stand in second place.
Exactly.
Sorry.
It's a second that last time by. We've seen Glenn Postlethwaite actually claw that gap or lose that gap too. It was a poor lap by his standards. Guy Leach on a 33.3 very much took that 1 second. Jeffrey Price just lost 2/10, then runs very wide through Shivlak, so that will be the draft that will be lost very, very soon as well. And once you lose the draft around here, it's so difficult to get back because you've got these long flowing sections, which does give you that time, but you have to be ragging it through the corners as Guy Leach does so, and he makes the mistake again. The same mistake he made at the Audi S, and Jeffrey Price now moves up third. Guy Leach is pushing too hard.
Oh, look, what a shame. He's having a look back around the outside. He's got a better run than Jeffrey Price. Oh,
He's got it.
looks like Guy Leach has got it. Oh.
No, he hasn't. He's stuck on the inside. He's caught there. Jeffrey Price running the outside line, running him out of road on that inside track. Guy Leach outbroke himself into the Audi S there. I thought he had that done, but he didn't. So Guy Leach still stuck there in fourth place and now starting to think, well, this is the big scrap. We're fighting for a wild card spot at this moment because the more that they fight around with each other and start making mistakes, the easier it will be for Glenn Postlethwaite to just think about pulling away and making this one work in favour as they get on the brakes. Both of these drivers wiggling through Tarzan at turn one, both of them struggling, and now this is a true scrap between them right at the back of the pack as they fight themselves through two into three now at the Hugenholtz. No way through for Guy Leach as they make themselves up through the June.
Mate, this is a battle made in Hollywood. This is crazy. The spins, the little mistakes, everyone keeping nice and tight with each other, the damage, this is unreal.
Fantastic scrap between two who really, really want it into Shivlak here on this right-hander, which is leaning forever and ever and ever before you get back on the power and start attacking again as they head themselves the series of three rights. That's the second, and this will be the third. This is where Guy Leach had his mistake a lap ago. This is lap 16 of the event here that we've got, and we are only about 15 minutes away from the end of this race, so expect maybe another 9 laps worth of running, so to speak. But on the power again, and Jeffrey Price is able to stretch his legs to about 4 car lengths or so on the brakes to the Audi S. And how late is Guy Leach? He's outbroken himself once again. He's not got the braking nice. Now all of a sudden that 4 car length gap has just stretched to about 12.
Tell you what, sorry, just to break away from that battle, has anyone told Chris that he can slow down yet? He's
No.
still putting 32 nines.
Well, here's another thing that needs to be questioned about this one, Josh, and it's all about rhythm here. Because the moment you start stepping off the gas, sometimes that's when the mistakes start to creep in and start to happen. So for Chris, maybe it's a case of keeping himself at 97, 98% in terms of times, just because that's his consistent value. And the moment he starts slowing down, takes his mind out of it, that may be where he loses this race.
No, that's fair enough. Look, if he feels comfortable doing that, absolutely, I'd say go for it. Though, look, he is pulling some quick times even this late into the race. Like, he's easily a second quick. 7/10 of a second in that last lap, quicker than anyone else. So if he looks very stable actually. Just going back to him, so we might leave him to it. He's looking pretty comfortable out there in first.
Certainly is. Glenn Postlethwaite there in second position for Synergy Sim Racing, currently now 11 seconds back off of Chris Aoun at the moment, and seriously struggling at the moment to find any sort of purchase to move forward. And this one is very, very telling because Postlethwaite has tried pretty much everything at the moment to just keep himself calm and keep himself in position, and it's worked for him because he's got himself a 5.3 second advantage over Jeffrey Price, who is there in third, who has just been a consistent factor in this one. It's not been anything special, which I think is fair to say. It's not been lightning quick in terms of pace. It's just been the fact that Jeffrey Price has probably been the only driver in this field to keep himself out of any form of trouble.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, he's the only car on the track here that doesn't have damage. So it's look, he's been the Mr. Consistent of this race, I guess you could say, as he's just starting to pull away from Guy Leach now. So 10th slower than Guy in that last lap, but he has got a pretty comfortable gap of about 1.5 seconds.
1.5 seconds he'll be very happy with at the moment. But Glenn Postlethwaite, again, a slow lap, a 1:34.5 for him. Lost 7/10 of a second as Leach has another little moment heading through the Hugenholtz this time. Just very easy to loop the back around there. And again, he's just so easily able to just bring that car back to straight using the brakes. It's not conventional method. It doesn't do the tyres any good, but Guy Leach is surviving. And at the moment, that's the only thing he's got going for him right now.
No, absolutely. If anything, he needs to take himself down. Oh, as he has another. Oh, wow. He's very lucky there not to put that in the wall or spin it on into the inside wall. He's not getting into any sort of rhythm after these last few laps. He's actually been, well, he's been making a mistake every lap. So a bit of a shame to see. But look, if he needs to sit back, reset himself, and then go again. That's what I'd be doing anyway.
I think he's cooked his tyres as well on the rear. He's hyper heated them, so to speak. I think that he's found himself in a position now when he's making those mistakes, he's making those spins, he heats up the tyres and it takes about a lap to cool down. The moment he gets the cool again, bang, there's another mistake and those tyre temperatures will go up and the wear levels of the tyres will go down and he'll start really struggling here to try and pull anything though. Gap at the front extends 13.5 seconds now, but the battle is now second between third. Price from 34.2 that last time by lost 4/10, so very much rubber banding forward and back, and very happy at the moment will be Glenn Postlethwaite. The fact that got himself that margin, he can keep with that margin, and he can effectively have a Sunday drive here, or what we could say is a Wednesday drive through the Dune.
Yeah, look, he's been very sensible. Just having a look at his just the way he's attacking corners, he's keeping it nice and tight. Not using the full potential of the car, keeping it nice and straight before he gets on the throttle. Look, he's doing a very good job at maintaining those tyres, maintaining the car, and maintaining that second place lead against Jeffrey Price. So props to Glenn for that.
Well, it's about high time we start talking about what they're actually racing for, and it's place in the All-Star Shootout, which is a series of heat races which are points decided and very much a rallycross format on a road course, so to speak. So that short layout they're going to be running for the majority, and then they will run up all the way to the middle part to get their lap sorted and get their joker. It's only about 4 laps that they'll be racing. It's not a long race by any chance, but it is all about how do you just sit yourself in a position, go out there and attack and have that short burst. The fact that this race is a long race in comparison, 40 minutes worth of racing. This is testing drivers. Okay, well, we know that you'll have to race about 40 minutes worth of racing a little later on when it comes to this season. So now what you have to do here, Josh, is effectively showcase you can do that all in one go and then break it up when it comes to Sunday.
Yeah, fair enough. Look, you need to keep being a racing driver, you need to expect the unexpected. You need to be able to handle any sort of situation for as long as you can. And that's what this is doing. This is really breaking up the fast drivers from the good drivers.
Certainly is, and at the moment, drivers are fast, drivers are good, but at the moment, it seems who's had the luck of the roll at the moment. Guy Leach certainly hasn't. Jeffrey Price did a 34.1 that last time by 2/10 out of Glenn Postlethwaite, but 2/10 will not be enough to chip down the 5-second margin at the front, and it will have to rely probably on a mistake from the 95 in second position to make anything happen. At the moment, nothing seemingly to be the case, and this is where Postlethwaite is doing something absolutely fantastic. He's driving well within his limits. We saw how at the start of that race, Josh, he was very much able to stay with Aoun and Newton, but ultimately backed out of it, knew that he was unable to match in terms of pace, but now driving well within his limits, knowing that his place is secured if things stay like this.
No, absolutely. Look, he was nice and careful. He did have a look up the inside of Owen going into turn 1 at one stage. Got a decent run from the final turn, though. Look, smart driver. He's thinking in the long term. He's thinking about the race victory. He's thinking about the podium. So he decided to back out of it, obviously, and it's paying dividends for him. Now sitting in second place. So, look, he's been a pretty careful driver this whole time. Like, he hasn't made too many mistakes. He hasn't slid the car around like a couple drivers have, which have ultimately cost some drivers their race altogether. So he's been driving it nice and easy. Well, nice and easy for a race car anyway, and it's paying dividends now for him.
Well, this is what they're racing for. They're racing for a race against Madison Down, Jared Filsell, Emily Jones, Blake Neck, Warren Pickering, who we've already seen, Brenton Hobson, Aaron Lee, Anthony Winkelman, Harley Haber, Jeremiah Morton, Mitch McLeod, who was in qualifying, and Ethan Warren, as well as one other Altus Esports driver, as Bo Albert has had to pull out of the event, sadly. But this is going to be a tough challenge for those. They're joining and names which have many titles that they can put to their names. Australian Sim Racing probably is the strongest in the field, and that can certainly be seen when especially you look at, say, the very top of sim racing at the moment, the Porsche Esports Super Cup, and the fact that you've got Josh Rogers fighting for the World Championship, so to speak, in that regard. So at the moment, you have to say Australian Sim Racing, second biggest in community in terms of numbers, probably strongest at the moment in terms of actual pace and talent.
Look, absolutely. Australian sim racing is a really special market at the moment. Coming from a driver's standpoint, I feel that it's a whole new area of motor racing. It's obviously not a conventional, where you compare it to the last however many years of motor racing, though it's starting to quickly become a mainstream motorsport centre for a lot of drivers, for pretty much any driver to get into. So we're starting to see the drivers that are able to adapt very quickly to any car, and we're starting to see a lot of quick drivers, to say the least. So look, it's an awesome part of motorsport, and it's an awesome part of history.
Certainly is. Guy Leach has just run wide at turn number 1 at the Tarzan corner. He gets himself on the brakes to the right-hander, just completely outdoes himself. And once you're on that outside, it's effectively like going over the banking, say, on the old banking at Monza. You've got nowhere to go from there. And although not as drastic as falling off 70+ degrees of banking, it's still a very long time to get back out on track once you do get it wrong at turn 1.
No, absolutely. Look, turn 1 is a brutal corner. It's a for a driver looking into it, coming into that braking zone, you do need to take a second look at it. It is a very inviting corner. Having a go on the sim myself on this track, not in a radical, in a Formula 1 car for a bit of fun, that corner is very inviting, and you can muck it up very quickly. So, look, not something that's hard to do.
Not something that's hard to do at all. Let's talk about the driver who's leading this race at the moment. He's got not long to go at all. He's got about 5 minutes before this one works in favour. And this is Chris Allen at the front right now. Just did a 33.3 that last time by. Effectively, Chris Allen is a mercenary for hire, so to speak. It seems that he effectively turns up where he's needed and races absolutely fantastically with anywhere. I've seen him race any sort of vehicle really well. I saw him in the OSR Formula 3s do an absolutely sensational job. He in fact had a battle, I think, for about an entire lap side by side. I've seen him brilliant when it comes to the likes of, say, an LMP2 car, and very much capable in that respect. I think Chris Allen's one of those mercenary drivers which I think someone wants to hire permanent.
I tell you what, that's a pretty wicked way of saying it. Oh, sorry, it looks like something's happened to Chris. Ooh.
Yeah, it looks like a slowdown potential. Yeah, that could have been a slowdown penalty. So he gets on the brakes here into the left-hander, has a little moment through the first part, a moment through the second. That could even be technical there, because he didn't, in fact, just flick himself through left and right without really going too much over the curb. So a small moment there for Chris Allen. We were talking him up there, and he does the 35 flat after that little moment. So had to be very careful about that, but he definitely has the gap to work with at the moment, and I think he'll just be very calm as happened now and not in the early stages of this race. We've got 4 minutes to go.
Yeah, look, we must have given him a bit of the commentator curse. He's yeah, that's weird what happened there. He was on the iRacing chat, bouncing on and off there. So maybe he had a little bit of might have flicked it and might have lost his wheel in the hand. I'm not too sure. It's anyway, he's kept the car straight. He hasn't spun it or anything like that, and he's still maintaining a 15-second gap as of last lap. So look, I'd say he's pretty happy that it happened now and not in lap 2.
It's very healthy, so to speak. That much we can certainly say. Glenn Postlethwaite has been a fixture of V8 Scott for a number of years and has turned up from time to time and has put world-class performances on the table. Not so much to speak 2018 Phillip Island, where he got himself into second position in qualifying and very much had a strong showing, as Synergy tend to do at that track. But over the last year or so, it's been a case of mid-pack performances in a field which has got more and more aggressive, more and more close, and is arguably the toughest challenge in all of sim racing at the moment for any league out there in the world. Glenn Postlethwaite has stayed above that, and his consistency again here today, and knowing how to drive well within his means, has got himself into second. And effectively, if anything doesn't happen in the last 2 and a bit minutes, I think he may just be in for a booking for Sunday.
Tell you what, that is a pretty wicked prize for what he's done and being able to maintain it. He's had a relatively easy race. Nothing easy about racing, especially this circuit, but when you compare it to some of the drivers here, he's done pretty well.
Certainly has done. Jeffrey Price there in third position has been ever the consistent driver, but again, the only issue he's had over the course of this race has been the big TOP factor, turn of pace. He's not had the pace to challenge those top two and gain exactly what was needed. He had fortune fall in his favour, but ultimately just hasn't got that something, and I don't know what it is that he needs to do. Maybe he needs to go find some coaching, maybe he needs to find a team that's going to help support, but he certainly has shown that he does have that potential. He can keep a car on the island, and as a basis for endurance racing, being an anchor style of driver in terms of having that base for quick races like these where you're ultimately going to gain positions by staying out of trouble, Jeffrey Price is a very inviting prospect, I think, the team.
No, absolutely. Look, he's been driving very well this race, considering that for a good chunk of this race, he was up the gearbox of Guy Leach. He's driven very well. He's kept the car nice and clean. He's the only car in the field at the moment that doesn't have any damage on it whatsoever. Look, very good drive from him.
Guy Leach, fourth position. It's just not been his day. We know the pace he's got. We know the talent he's got. And the man who seemingly has a big affinity with Valentino Rossi, the 46, on his vehicle, well, he can be very much assured in knowing that this is more of the Valentino Rossi at Ducati more than it was the Valentino Rossi at Yamaha. But the white flag will be out now. Chris Aoun's got 1 lap to go as he rides himself up through the dune and into Shivlak, turn number 6. He has been in complete control since Chris Newton had his moment. He forced the pressure cooker up to 11, and ultimately it was Newton who cracked. Now on the brakes to the right they come along. This is Vodafone, and now they've got this big left Renault coming up before they make their way to the Audi S. It has been some sensational driving in terms of hot lap and pace, and certainly has shown that when it comes to pace in this vehicle, he'll be fantastic when it comes to All-Star Shootout 6. Into the Audi S then for the final time on the 26th run through, and it has been all but plain sailing. Just 2 corners remain for the mercenary for hire as he now makes his way through turn 12, looking for turn 13, and Chris Aoun will be the first man to book his place when it comes to Sunday. Welcome to All-Star Shootout, Chris Aoun. It's victory for you at Circuit Park Zandvoort. Glenn Postlethwaite will come to the line, and he will book other place here for Synergy Sim Racing. That will give them at least 2 vehicles in with Brenton Hobson, Hobbo 88 alongside. So Postlethwaite will confirm second position, and then probably my pick for driver to include just on sheer consistency value and impressiveness, Jeffrey Price. A great job from him to get into third position. Finally, Guy Leach will be rounding himself through the final couple of corners. It has been a solid race, one that did I'd say split out quite a bit in the final stages, but can't blame them. They're all trying to consolidate position.
Tell you what, they're all fighting for that first 2 positions. That's a very fair race. I completely understand why we do see a few drivers out. Everyone is pushing. It's all guts, all glory, mate. Look, fantastic racing from these guys. It was very entertaining to watch.
Very entertaining indeed, and this is official classified results on the left-hand side of your screen. Chris Aoun takes the victory in 40 minutes and 28 seconds. He cruises back home to a 13.7 second victory over Glenn Postlethwaite. Jeffrey Price finishes third, 9 seconds back of that, and 25 seconds down the road is Guy Leach, fourth position. A lot of retirements from this one. Warren Pickering had his spin, but he already booked his place. Scott Newton was in control of the race at the front, but ultimately the pressure cooker told and mistakes were made. It will be sixth only for him. Darren McKenzie made spins from the back, as did Sean Thompson, as both of them ran themselves into troubles. And on lap one, Kurt Stenberg dramatically hit the wall, and his day was done before it even really started. So, Josh, let's just get some fallout then from that race. This was a race of two halves, so to speak. You had that really amped up, aggressive, gotta get into the front two positions. Mistakes were made opening half. Then you had that really cooled off second half of that race where everyone's just trying to consolidate positions and try and make sure that everything's going to work out in favor. Just how do you think that's going to play out? And how do you think drivers who have been keeping an eye on this race off will vie up and eye up the competition moving on?
Oh, look, it's a very good. That's a very good question. It's look, that first half of the race where we saw Scott out the front with Chris battling, Glenn looking behind, and then all the drivers following up behind. Look, it was a very interesting start to the race, seeing Scott being able to hold that lead, Chris really fighting for that position, and watching Glenn sit behind and be so patient. It was a awesome start to the race. So I feel like a lot of drivers are going to walk away and sort of take in what happened. A lot of the drivers that are already in, who are coming in and watching this race, they would be seeing just the styles of Chris and Glenn, especially who they're going to be competing against. Um, they would see the somewhat their driving style when they're out in the air, as well as when they're in the battle. We saw that Chris is very aggressive. He wants that position really badly, though he's not going to bin the car for it. While we see Glenn, on the other hand, who's that little bit more patient, setting himself up for the turn. So I feel like it's look. I couldn't say for certain how other drivers are going to handle this, because everyone does handle it differently. Though saying that as well, I feel like there's going to be a lot of data taken from this.
Absolutely, there will. And the only place that you can see that data go into full fruition will be Sunday here on Forever Sim Racing, because All Star Shootout 6 will take its hold back here at Zandvoort as we run the shorter layouts and get ourselves into what I'd like to call faux rallycross here at this wonderful, wonderful track. But that calls time on this broadcast. A massive thank you to the CS hosting event for getting this one to go out there and get together, as well as to the two men who have helped me here behind the scenes, Marco Barbanera and Josh Bain, who have been helping out with this one. We'll get ourselves a lot better action, hopefully, when it comes to Sunday. I've been Jake Sperry, but it is Chris Owen and Glenn Postlethwaite who find themselves through, as well as the magical mystery driver who could be absolutely anyone in that field, who can make their way into the finals as well. Make sure you tune in, because we're going to crown Australia's best on the road. The only way you can tell that one is by joining us. We'll see you on Sunday.
Shadows dancing through the air. Her breath